When we say charge on, we commit to do extraordinary things. It's a catalyst for action. To put in the work. To keep trying. It's a challenge. To be smarter and stronger. Charge on. It drives us to be more. To get after it every day. It's time to rise above. To let them know we're coming. Charge on. Charge on.
Hello, and welcome to the Research Recovery and Reskill webinar. This is the 5th webinar of the fall series. Thanks for joining us. I'm Susan Vernon Devlin, Manager of Communications and Marketing here at the Rosen College of Hospitality Management, and I will be your moderator for this webinar. Today, we present the 4th of a 4-part mini workshop series, People Working or Not Working in Isolation. These 4 workshops are in collaboration with the UCF Department of Psychology and will be presented by world-class researchers outside of the field of hospitality. First, before we get started, a little bit of housekeeping. Attendees, we will use the question and answer feature today for this webinar, as well as chat and polls. We will respond to your questions throughout the presentation and also at the end of the presentation. If your question is the same or similar to a question that has already been asked, we will only answer once. If we don't get to your question during the presentation and afterwards, we will try and reach you after the presentation to answer your question. And now I would like to introduce Dr. Kristen Horan, an assistant professor in the Industrial Organizational Psychology program at the University of Central Florida. Dr. Horan is the Deputy Director of Program Administration for the Targeted Research Training Program, also known as TRT. In this role, she organizes and evaluates each semester's Targeted Research Training Program workshop. Dr. Horan will provide a brief overview of the Targeted Research Training Program and introduce today's speaker. Dr. Horan.
Thank you, Susan. And thank you so much to our alumni, students, researchers, and hospitality professionals who've taken the time to join our webinar series. Isolation is a topic of great importance in the context of COVID-19, especially for an industry such as the hospitality industry that is normally so focused on connections with people. We've heard from a number of experts on coping with various issues related to isolation. And today we will close out this mini-series with an important discussion on finding purpose, even during challenging circumstances. As a reminder, this series is brought to you through a collaboration between the Rosen College of Hospitality Management and the Targeted Research Training Program. The Targeted Research Training Program is housed within the University of Central Florida Psychology Department. We focus on research to improve health and safety in hospitality organizations, graduate training, and outreach services for both academic and industry audiences. Next slide, please. This program is part of a larger group called the Sunshine Education and Research Center at the University of South Florida, which is funded by the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health. Next slide, please. I would like to thank each of our core faculty from the UCF Psychology Department and Rosen College of Hospitality Management, our multi-institution and interdisciplinary research team, and our advisory board partners. Our program of research, training, and outreach, including this webinar series, would not be possible without their effort and expertise. As we close out this mini-series, I would like to remind our viewers that the activities of the Targeted Research Training Program will continue beyond this webinar series. We address a wide range of work-related health and safety concerns, and we are always open to academic industry partnerships. We also regularly offer outreach events each semester. At the end of this presentation, there will be a link to the TRT website. I encourage you to visit this website so that you can keep up with TRT projects and events. I also encourage you to take the short post-series survey that will be emailed to all webinar viewers to help us evaluate and further build our research and outreach services. Next slide, please. Now that our viewers have a solid foundation in who TRT is and why we chose to offer this webinar series, let's turn our attention to today's topic. COVID-19 has resulted in a certain amount of life disruption for most individuals, and this is especially true for employees in the hospitality industry. Today, we will hear from Dr. Connie Wanberg and a graduate student, Moses Rivera, who will provide guidance on finding purpose, even in the face of life disruption. Dr. Connie Wanberg is a professor and industrial relations faculty excellence chair in the Work and Organizations Department at the Carlson School of Management. As an educator, she teaches classes involving human resources management, leadership, industrial organizational psychology, and organizational behavior. As a researcher, she is internationally known for her work on unemployment, job search, and careers. She is highly published in top-tier peer-reviewed journals, as well as numerous book chapters. Her co-presenter, Moses Rivera, is a trainee of the Targeted Research Training Program. He is a student in the Industrial Organizational Psychology Ph.D. program at the University of Central Florida. His research interests include team performance and statistical methods. It's my great pleasure to turn the presentation over to both Dr. Wanberg and Mr. Rivera.
Next slide, please. Hi, everyone. It's great to have you logged in, and greetings from Minnesota. My co-presenter Moses is in Florida. I'm in Minnesota. It is 34 degrees here, and we actually have snow cover. Moses, what's the temperature there?
Not quite 37 degrees, or it's closer to 83 here in Florida.
Well, thanks again for logging in. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to try to have you think about where are you in your life journey, and we're going to introduce to you a really memorable and nice framework called the Life Inspiration Model. We're going to encourage you to set some goals using this model. And in fact, if you have a pen and paper nearby, you might take that. When we get to the model, you can snap a photo with your phone of the model if it's useful to remember later, or you can type some notes on your computer. We're going to encourage you to set some goals using this model. And at the end of the webinar, we're going to briefly discuss the context of furlough or unemployment if some of you are currently without a job. So as a start, I want you to all think about your life right now. I want you to think about it as a road. So this is a road or a path. And I want you to go to the bottom right-hand corner of the slide. And I want you to think about the beginnings of your life, where you were born, what year. And in fact, try to find your chat function right now and chat to everybody and actually put in where were you born and in what year. Just as a chance to kind of realize the diversity of our participants right now. Well, we have quite a few locations, including Greece. Way to go. Really interesting set of participants here. I was also born in 1966, Georgia. Okay, picture what was happening in the year you were born. And now I want you to go to the top of the slide. And I want you to think about your life off in the future. There's certain things that happen during our lives that make us think about life off into the future. And as an example, because of COVID, we've had an incentivized retirement program. And I've had a lot of my current colleagues retiring, and we've recently had a lot of retirement receptions, and it's made me really think about my life off into the future and how quickly life goes. Now I want you to think about where are you right now on this road. So think about, where you are and what thoughts come to mind about the life you've lived so far. And I actually encourage you to take a moment to share a few thoughts in the chat function. What thoughts come to mind about the life you've lived so far? You might write thankful, or life is too short, or hard knocks, or gratitude, or goes fast. There's a lot left to do. Just what are some thoughts that come to mind? Go ahead and use the chat function and share a few thoughts. You can see a variety of thoughts coming forward, like so many dreams, not enough time or money to do, busy, so thankful for everything. Spent a lot of time focused on my career, now I'm laid off. So really think about where you are right now. Okay, next slide.
That's right. Thank you, Dr. Wanberg. And so we're seeing a variety of thoughts and experiences in the comments. And this speaks to the fact that people experience lots of twists and turns in life, just like this winding road depicted here. And most people, when they look at their life path, can think of times when they were in one of three places. And the first is a place of balance, which is a time in your life when you felt in sync. Things were clicking and in place. But when we're not in balance, sometimes we're in a place we call trigger. And that's a time in your life when you're forced by some trigger into a period of change. For some people, this can be, for example, welcoming a baby into the family or settling into a new job. But finally, sometimes we're neither in a place of balance nor a triggered place of change, but we're just in a state of limbo, a transition or period where we just feel in between. So now we want to do a quick poll at this moment in Zoom to ask you, which phase do you feel you're currently in? So I'm going to launch the poll now, and there it is. And so you should see the poll appear on your screen now. And I just want us to take a few seconds to think about this and go ahead and fill out the poll. And you know, and so obviously it's just up to whatever you think, right? There's no right or wrong answer. And as we're waiting for responses to come in, I like to take these little moments in a presentation while we're waiting for polls to just take a deep breath in and out. I can't take credit for this technique, but I do find it's a quick and easy way to sort of recharge. So while we're waiting, so it looks like we have just about everyone filled out the poll. And so now I can show the results of the poll. And hopefully y'all can see, here we go, share results. And so now y'all can see, it seems like, the majority of us, 58%, feel like we're in a state of limbo, and 32% feel like we're in a place of trigger where we've been forced into change. And then 10% of us feel like we are in balance. And so I'll stop sharing those. And so unfortunately, COVID has presented a time of transition and limbo for millions of people around the world. And obviously, we would all love to feel like we're in a place of balance. So the question is, what can we do?
So from time to time in our lives, it's really useful to do a life inventory. And what we're going to do today is introduce you to a model called the Life Inspiration Model. This is a life inspiration model. It has 7 areas of life that are important to most people. As I go through these, I want you to think about which of these areas are you pretty satisfied with at this time in terms of how they're going, and which of these areas are things that you may want to work on. And what we're looking for is for you to think about goals or gaps that you want to fill in these areas. And usually when you're setting goals, you don't want to set too many goals. You want to set maybe 1 to 3 goals so you can make sure that you make them happen. What we're going to do is we're going to start by giving you several examples to help trigger your thoughts about these different areas. As an example, when I thought about this slide, I actually can think of a lot of things that I'd like to work on. But I kind of ended up focusing on 2 areas, and that is family and hobbies. And just to explain where I got there, let me talk about my status quo. I tend to, at my time, spend almost all my time on 3 areas, and that is work, my immediate family, so meaning my son and daughter and her spouse and my relationship, and on 1 hobby, and that is cycling. So thinking about this, I found it useful to think about my family as more than my immediate family. And as an example, I have a 4-year-old niece in South Dakota, and she of course is going to grow up fast. I haven't been able to see her as much because of COVID. And one of my intentions or goals that this life inspiration model brought forward for me is to really keep in contact with my 4-year-old niece. And it's been a lot of fun. I sent her a scavenger hunt in the mail, and she sent me a video of what she was going to send to or take to show and tell. And it was so sweet because she had a picture with all of us in it. And she said, "And this is my family." And that's what she was taking to show and tell. So that's been going well. And in terms of hobbies, it may seem odd, but one thing for my life is that because I work so much, I spend a lot of time with my family, and then I only have 1 hobby. And so my goal is actually to expand my hobbies beyond cycling. And so one thing I've been working on is to improve my patio and to learn new gardening skills. And as one more example, this is Maria. And when she went through this inventory, she thought that because of COVID, she's actually gained about 8 to 10 pounds, and she's not exercised as much as she would like. And exercise, as she thought about it, really makes her feel good, makes her feel good about herself. It gives her more energy. And so she actually had to really intentionally think about how she wanted to, what she wanted to do, and really establish a habit. And once she thought about it, she got back into a habit of taking daily walks. And once she got through the first 2 weeks, it became a habit. And then she just kind of continued regularly.
Thank you, Dr. Wanberg. I think those were encouraging and relatable examples, I'm sure, for a lot of us. And certainly COVID-19 has also led to an explosion of people trying new hobbies. As another example, here's an example from Daryl, who recently started playing online games with his friends, even though he was completely new to this, right? I'm sure many of us maybe like to play games on our phones and stuff. But in this case, Daryl was not a gamer by any means, but he did notice that many of his friends would often play online together, and they were happy to teach him. So next thing you know, he's enjoying a weekly online game night with his crew. So like Daryl, perhaps you've picked up on a new hobby, or there's something you've been wanting to do now as the season is changing to cooler weather. So not only is it fun to engage in hobbies, but it's also important in a balanced life as a way to rest and recharge. So now we want to do another poll. We want to invite you to do another poll. And as we're looking at the life inspiration model, we want to know, which categories do you feel drawn towards or already have ideas for? It could be finance, career, relationships, or is it more social, your health, hobbies, your family? So I'm going to go ahead and launch the second poll for today. And go ahead and indicate which one or more categories you feel drawn towards. And when you're done with the poll, please also feel free to go ahead and share in the chat feature any specific goals that you have for any of the categories. And so while we're waiting for the polls and as we're getting the responses coming through the chat, I can go ahead and share one of my specific goals. I think my goal falls most closely into the health category. And something that I've always enjoyed doing is just scheduling time in my calendar, usually at least 3 days a week, where I just have what I call unstructured me time, where I can do whatever I want, whether that's read a book or maybe I'll go shopping online or something. But the thing is, I just want to almost make a date with myself. And that's something that I will often find that I sort of, it's the first thing to go when life gets busy and I don't, and time becomes more scarce. So that's one of my goals. And it looks like we have everyone's responses in the poll. So I'll share that now. And I'm looking now at the chat and we see there's a few goals. Someone would like to do more structured family meals. I'm a big fan of that. So yeah, and I see, and exactly, and so that is both, that's a family sort of goal, and it also falls in the health sort of category. I'm seeing re-engaging with friends. That's I myself also, I can relate to that one. Someone is picking up a hobby of surfing and they're committed to practicing regularly. So as you can see, we all have sort of these goals that touch on different areas and categories of the life inspiration model. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing the poll. And there we are.
You may want to actually, if Moses, if you go back to that last slide, you might find it helpful to, if you have your cell phone, snap a picture of the model. It's really a useful model to come back to and reflect upon. Before we go on, I just wanted to comment on a few of the responses in chat. Kristen said she'd like to do more structured family meals. That reminds me of one time when I looked at this model and I had heard somebody talk about family traditions, and I thought about all the traditions I had growing up around, I celebrate Christmas, and my mom had these special times where she gave me a gift every Valentine's Day. And those kind of traditions were really important to me. And so then I thought about how can I create traditions for my children? And so sometimes just intentionally thinking about this picture, you can actually do some pretty big changes in your life and make them happen. Susan also said she'd like to re-engage with her friends. One thing that we've been doing here in Minnesota is actually starting to do some coworker walks. And so rather than just meeting by Zoom, we've gotten together and taken just in pairs of two. You know, we feel pretty safe outdoors to take walks, and that's really been helpful for us. Okay, next slide. So it's also important to think about how to make these things happen. Here are some thoughts about this. It is useful, if you don't have any ideas yet, to revisit this model and just reflect upon it. And ideas will come to you over time. As an example, when this gardening goal that I have, my cousin posted on Facebook all these flowers she had planted. And some of you, I'm sure, are gardeners and think it's pretty easy, but I'm an academic, and I spent my childhood and most of my adulthood just with my nose buried in a book. So I don't have a lot of practical skills like gardening. And I got the idea off of someone on Facebook, and I just kept reflecting upon it. And then I've been starting to explore, like just a little at a time. You know, how can I learn about this? And my neighbor plants a lot of stuff outside, so I ask some questions. And so it's kind of important to then dive in and just try things. And if they don't work out, then such is life. But, you know, I really encourage you to reflect, explore, discuss with others, and act. Next slide. All right, so this is kind of a heavy slide. But some other important questions to ask yourself at this time is, well, what do I want said at my funeral? And even though that's a really heavy, deep question, sometimes it stimulates thoughts for people about where they want to spend their time and things that they want to do. And it might get them out of their doldrums and go, you know, I'm going to just make myself do a couple of things. Moses and I were talking about the weather before we started the presentation, and I said, gosh, it sure is hard to get outside when it's 34 degrees, but once you do it, it's not so bad. And so, you know, sometimes you just kind of have to dive in and try some different things. It's also useful to think about what are your values, and are you spending time to reflect those values in your life? What gives you energy, and are you spending time in those things? I know people who really like to bake and cook, and then sometimes they just don't take the time to do that. I also, I've been having a hard time exercising in my own house, and you know that it's cold, I have to exercise inside. And I reached out to a friend of mine, and she said, you know what, that's my me time. And just by talking to her about it, it kind of helped reframe the exercise into, you know, let's just kind of like give myself time to do it. And so I've actually been booking a little more time to exercise, because I found that I take a 2-hour window. And it's kind of silly, but I spend the first 20 minutes sort of wandering around my house, picking up and just kind of mentally getting ready to exercise. And so I've just booked a little bit extra time. And so that kind of ties in with what gives me energy, and spending time on those things, and how can I make myself do it. And also think about who's important to me, and do they know? So just take some time before we move on to the next slide and reflect upon these questions. So I'm just going to give you just a second. Okay, Moses, next slide. All right, so we're going to take this time to take some questions. The webinar is not done yet, but we wanted to stop for a moment before we go on to talk about the context of unemployment or furlough, to just see what questions come to mind so far. You can go ahead and put your questions in the chat function or in the Q&A function. Okay, so Ashley wants to know, can we send the presentation out? I think actually it's going to be posted. Kristen, could you chime in and talk about that?
Absolutely. So all of the webinars presented as part of both this mini workshop series and the Research Recovery and Reskill series as a whole are hosted on Rosen College's website and posted on their YouTube channel.
Do we have any other questions so far? Okay. I'll give you another 10 seconds to formulate any questions if you have any. What happens if values are in conflict? So I assume that means, oh, time for me takes away from family. Oh, I think that is hard, but I think it's really important to take care of yourself. I do feel like I spent most of my life only being in academia is a very focused career, and I divided all my time between my family. I have a son and a daughter, and they're now grown up, and work. And I never took time for myself. And I rarely took time for myself. And in fact, when I went to the grocery store, I'd always be in a hurry, like I gotta get home. And I never wanted to get a babysitter because, oh, I don't want to leave my kids home alone when they had been in daycare all day. And I think in the end, it's a much healthier life to carve time out for yourself. And if that means saying no to some more things at work, I think it's just something you just have to do, because taking care of yourself is just really important.
Dr. Wanberg, we have a question from Joanne, and you may want to leave this until the next section, but she wants to know, when laid off, how much time should you leave for yourself to regroup?
I assume that you mean compared to job search, and we are going to talk about that a little bit in the next session. But I think it is. I think what you're saying is like how much time before I start a job search, and I would say it's okay to take a couple of weeks or 3 weeks, 4 weeks, but it's really important to set a goal that this is when I'm going to start my job search, and to kind of have a defined period that this is my time to just kind of regroup and, think about my life. And on December 1st, I'm going to start my job search. And so that's what I would suggest, is that it's not too big of a time, but yet it is comfortable and good to give yourself time after a layoff. Susan, are there any other questions, or should we go on?
We just had a follow-up from Joanne. She said, yes, when do you start? Do most people faced with this challenge transition to a new field, or continue to focus their energy and efforts in their current industry, which is suffering?
I think that both approaches are appropriate. I think that if you're really interested in staying in the same industry, I think that it's appropriate to pursue that dream if that's what you want to do. And I think it's also possible to switch industries. Why don't we actually, it was, who is the name who asked? Did you say Susan? Feel free to revisit the question as we go on. Okay, well, let's go on to the next section. So we wanted to briefly discuss the context of furlough and unemployment within this context. So for those of you who are unemployed or on furlough right now, you have a lot of stressors that go far beyond COVID. For job seekers or people on layoff, the number one stressor tends to be money. And so that's a really big stressor to worry about how to make ends meet. On top of that, layered on top of that, people who are unemployed or on furlough have the following stressors. One is loss of daily structure. And so employment actually gets us up in the morning, you have a routine, you have a daily structure to your life. Another stressor is a loss of social contact. We've all had a loss of social contact, but it's particularly amplified if you're laid off or furloughed. There's also a loss of identity, and I think the last question kind of spoke to that. It's like, okay, so do I continue on this path or do I take another path? And we all identify with our work so much that it's really a strike when we're laid off or furloughed. And a last stressor is the job search process. And really, where do I look? How do I look? When do I look? What are the best search methods? Next slide. So as a few tips during furlough or layoff, first of all, I really want to encourage you to use resources to get job search information. So your alma mater actually has a lot of resources posted on their webpage on job search. And my understanding is that they offer a lot of resources for job seekers. And what I find with my students is that we have actually a Class A really good job center, but a lot of our students don't use those resources. And so I sometimes really have to push students to go use our placement center. And so I really encourage you to use online resources to get job search information. Other resources are networks. And so a lot of people are really timid about networking. So they They think that networking is uncomfortable, maybe they're introverted, but networking is really just having conversations. And so according to the, following the last question that we had about should I stay in the same industry or not, what I would encourage that individual to do is actually schedule a few Zoom meetings with other people to sort through this question. And so it's really good to use your networks, and you can do this through Zoom or on the phone. I really recommend you use a video platform so you can see each other, or get together for a distanced conversation and just say, you know, here's something I'm puzzling about. And by talking to others who are familiar with the industry, it'll really help. The second thing I suggest is that you really establish a job search plan and a routine. So the job search plan is really taking, making a plan of when do I start my job search? What steps am I going to take in my job search? What type of job am I going to look for? And so you may actually say, all right, I am going to start on this date. Maybe I'm going to dabble with applying for a few other types of positions at the same time. I will say that the literature suggests that having job search clarity and focus is best for helping you find a job, and people who are scattered and applying for all types of jobs tend to not be as successful. But this is a different type of situation, and I think it's okay to take a few different avenues and say, okay, I'm going to explore a few other types of positions, and maybe you're going to explore going back to school, maybe some other types of programs. And at the same time, I'm going to wait a little to see if positions open up. I'm going to continue my industry line at the same time. It's also important as you job search to have some kind of a routine. So what I would recommend is you actually start dabbling in looking at job search sites. You actually start by having a few networking conversations and build a few of those things into each week. And with all of this, I realize that it gets old to be told to have a mindset of resilience. Let's go back to a pre-COVID job search. I will tell you that oftentimes job seekers think over and over and over that I apply for a job and I'm going to get that job, when in actuality, it takes several applications before you get a job. And it's just part of the process, that it's kind of like, okay, I have to apply for several jobs and one will come through. And it's a really important time to continue to remind yourself that you have a lot of skills and things to offer. And it is the fact that some job seekers begin to get down on themselves and to doubt what they can offer. And it's important to just absolutely don't let that go. Realize you have a lot to offer and you're going to make it happen. And it may take some time, but it will happen. Okay, at this time, I think we're going to take another set of questions. You can go on to the next slide.
Looking into the question and answer feature right now, we don't have any questions. Does anyone have any questions they'd like to pose? You can also put them in the chat feature. I think you've left people with a lot to ponder right now, Dr. Wanberg.
Okay, it doesn't seem like we have any questions. Moses?
Sure, yeah, and I would very much agree. I think people are pondering, and so while we're pondering and coming up with questions, we have just a little bit of time. I'd like to go ahead and share just a couple of resources to help inspire us and help us navigate times of uncertainty. And so the first one is a popular book titled Designing Your Life by Bill Burnett and David Evans, both of whom work at Stanford University and they bring their experiences from the field of mechanical engineering and product design into their approach for life design. And so the book can be used almost like a workbook, which includes sections specifically for job seekers. For example, Dr. Wanberg mentioned networking and how that aspect of job search. And that's actually a big part of the section in this book for job seekers. And it's got tips about how to sort of have these organic conversations with people in your field or in related fields, and how those conversations can just organically lead to opportunities that might not necessarily exist on a job board online. So I highly recommend that book. I actually personally read that book a few years back, and so I can personally recommend that one. And the second resource that we wanted to recommend is actually a TED Talk by Eileen Chai titled, "Take Time, You'll Find Your Purpose in Life." And so in her talk, Chai outlines how her life experiences might seem like a jumbled series of unrelated jobs and occupations, but she shares how we can connect the dots and